Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Watch Your Heroes Fall. This will be Part 29, Chapter 33, entitled Phase 4, Song 4, Thought Contagion by Muse. Down with the Heroes is the most popular subreddit on the internet at the moment. TikTok is just an endless montage of Endeavor slander. Instagram influencers are wearing homages to their favorite members of the league, or Cerberus, who had gained 2 million followers since her part in the 8th Street quake, and has used her platform to talk about quirk discrimination she experienced for her insight quirk, or her little sister and mom's quirklessness. Not that Shota has had much time to check social media lately. He's still teaching classes, and when he's not in class, he's doing his damnedest to talk with Ashido or Kirishima or Shoji or Ojiro or any of the kids that find themselves waffling at the door after class. After last Monday, when they had all just sat and talked about feelings, the class has been opening up. Shota's been trying to encourage it, as much as his emotionally constipated ass can manage. There's hilariously little paperwork for unattended minors with no living relatives, so he gets Eri settled in at the dorms on Monday. And she avoided the hero students like the plague, except Ochako and eventually Sue, who were doing their best to integrate Eri with the class more fully. Ida made the mistake of talking about when Izuku and the rest are arrested during homeroom, and Eri bit his hand. Ida was fine, even laughed with the rest of the class and apologized for his misspeak, but it made Eri's stance clear. When Shota's not walking teenagers through their 6th once-in-a-lifetime event of the year, or figuring out how the fuck parenting a 6-year-old works, he's skimming the cacophony of emails of teachers and staff hounding Nezu to do something about the league dragging the UA name through the mud. Make a statement, they plead. Launch an offensive, something. But Nezu's replies are calm and clipped when he says that UA will make no moves against the league as they currently operate, until such a time as they attack or injure UA students or personnel. That position comes under massive fire on Monday afternoon, when 12 different live streams catch the visuals of the altercation between Bakugo Katsuki and Midoriya Izuku. Shota feels ashamed to say he's been waiting for this. The animosity between those two was palpable from their first heroics exercise. If Midoriya's on the warpath, Bakugo should have been counted among the collateral before the first shot was even fired. Even if Bakugo has changed drastically since Midoriya left, even if he softened his edges and held himself to a better standard, even if he cried at night after he was done helping Kirishima remember that everyone was all right before bed, there's no way Midoriya could have known about that. Midoriya would still face the same demons of his past, even if the demons had exorcised themselves out of their host. But, as with the Mirko fight, when Shota was provided the compiled video footage of the live streams of the events, it was far from a fight. Bakugo ran up, Midoriya offered himself for a rest, and Bakugo just stared for about 30 seconds. When Midoriya prodded, Bakugo exploded with a shadow of his former self and chased Midoriya down the street for a minute before setting off the smoke bomb setting of his gauntlets. An update inspired by Hagakure, who mentioned that even hard-to-see opponents like herself would be pretty visible in a smokescreen, where the smoke would move around her body and reveal her location. When the smoke cleared, Bakugo had a hand against Midoriya's throat on the ground, and they spoke to each other for a moment before a kid with a cell phone started throwing rocks at Bakugo, and Bakugo flinched, and Midoriya shot up and was swallowed by a warp gate. The details are hidden for Shota to find. Bakugo isn't necessarily faster than Midoriya, but he's not so slow that he couldn't catch up, especially at the speed Midoriya was going. Midoriya never fought back, but taunted Bakugo several times. Midoriya had been borderline terrified of Bakugo in class. Bakugo used a smokescreen explosion instead of the howitzer blast that could have put Midoriya on the ground in a second. Midoriya waited until Bakugo flinched to get up. All of that would just look like personal tics to anyone who didn't know the kids, but Shota does know them, and he knows these are the wrong personal tics. These two don't fight like this. They don't act like this. It was a farce, but Shota knew that even without watching the compiled footage Nezu sent him. So he expected it when Bakugo came into class the next day pale-faced and red-eyed. He got the class into order for homeroom a few minutes early so people would stop asking Bakugo questions, and the first thing he told the class was not to bother Bakugo about it. He'll talk about it when he wants to, not when you want to, is how Shota phrased it. How well the kids actually listened to that is something Shota had never pretended to have control over, but he glares at Kaminari and Sato a few times for asking Bakugo things along the lines of, "Did you really try to kill Midoriya yesterday?" He gets the feeling they both know the answer anyway, and just want a story. Eri comes up to Bakugo during lunch, Sue has graciously offered to supervise Eri at lunchtime so Shota can eat in peace in the teacher's lounge and says, "You saw Izuku yesterday." And Bakugo says, "Yeah, what of it?" And Eri says, "Is he okay?" And Bakugo says, "The fuck should I know?" And then he seemed to realize what he should say, and so he adds, "He seemed fine. He's not dying or nothing," which is mostly true. And Eri says, "I miss him a lot." And Bakugo says, "Don't I fucking know it. Hey, Kirishima, eat your meat or I'm stealing it." And Eri says, "You're a lot nicer than Shoto said." And Bakugo says, "I'm really not." And Eri goes back over to Sue and Ochako and begins to tell them about Himiko's collection of clips and barrettes and bows, most of them made by Momo. When everyone is back from lunch, Eri climbs into Shota's desk chair to whisper in Shota's ear, "Bakugo is sad." And then she climbs back down and skips back to her spot in the back between Ochako and Sato, and Koda passes her another piece of notepaper, and classes proceed as normal. While the kids are in their afternoon classes, Shota skims more emails. Staff members insist, "Now, attack the League." And Nezu calmly quickly responds that UA will take no action, as Bakugo was the offensive party. Any action UA takes would be in defense of a student who used his quirk against a villain without a license. It's only due to the media's preoccupation with all things League of Villains taking the heat off of Bakugo's lapse in judgment that UA hasn't had legal repercussions already. Shota responds to Takanaga Mimi, a third-year business course teacher, and tells her that if she approaches Bakugo to tell him anything, much less the few stern words about what a hero really looks like, she promised all the staff, CC'd into the email chain, he will do whatever it takes to make sure she never has access to any students again. Nezu replies to Shota and Mimi's email chain saying, "Let's all do our best to guide our own classes through these turbulent waters." Homeroom meets again before classes let out for the day, and Shota tells everyone to relax this evening. Meditate or something. I don't know. Kaminari raises his hand. "I don't know how to meditate, Mr. Aizawa." Ojiro does not raise his hand. "I do. I can teach you guys if you want." Jiro, who has finally started to come back out of her shell after the Todoroki video, says, "Awesome. Thanks, Ojiro." Shota gives up on any parting words and waves the class out towards the dorms. Eri patters out of the room holding Ochako's hand and telling her all about how Magne has battle-tested hair curlers, and everyone in class tries to take Eri's blasé discussion of villains as pseudo-parents in stride as they eavesdrop. As expected, Bakugo waffles at his desk as class gets out. Kirishima waits with him. "Bakugo," Shota says, "would you like to sit with me after class?" Bakugo nods, staring angrily at his pencil on his desk. Kirishima has a hand across Bakugo's shoulders. "Want me to stay with you, Bakubro? Moral support?" Bakugo shakes his head, but accepts the offered fist bump as Kirishima makes his way towards the door. "See ya, Mr. Aizawa. Don't be late for movie night, Bakubro. We're starting The Untamed." "You fuckers are gonna wait for me anyway," Bakugo grumbles. "Yeah, we are." Kirishima laughs and shuts the classroom door behind him. After the door shuts, they hear Kirishima whistle himself down the hallway. They both know it's false cheer, one problem child at a time, and Bakugo's number is up. Bakugo leans back to sit on his desk. Shota doesn't mention how impolite this is because this month alone, Bakugo has called everyone by their names except Kirishima, who seems flattered by the distinction. Shota will leave discussions of crushes to Hisashi, though. It's the progress Shota is concerned with, and it's a fucking desk. Shota sits on the one in front of Bakugo. It would be Yaoyorozu's if Yaoyorozu started coming back to class. He thinks that, if anyone, other than Ida, Yaoyorozu would care about people sitting on desks. Shota stands back up. Bakugo, for all his waffling, is not especially forthcoming with talking. Shota didn't really expect him to be, but it is Bakugo, and Bakugo is full of surprises, like suddenly calling everyone except his crush by their first name after the kid he went to middle school with took up villainy. The jump from point A to point B isn't clear-cut, but it can be reasoned out. Shota isn't stupid. "So," Shota starts. "Yesterday." Bakugo nods. Shota says, "He goaded you." He has a full speech planned for this one. He had to plan it in advance because this is a very touchy situation involving two very touchy students, but he doesn't get to give a speech here because Bakugo blurts, "I know what he wanted." And Shota stills because Bakugo's breathing is getting heavy and thick, like he's got more to say. And Shota's speech doesn't matter nearly as much as figuring out what Bakugo's got going on in that poofy head. Bakugo clenches his jaw so tight Shota feels his own teeth grinding. I was prepared. Bakugo restarts. After everything I'd done, I was prepared to do anything to make it right, you know? Like, fuck, Mr. Aizawa, you don't even know what I did. I was a kid, I know that. I'm not dumb, but still. I told him to kill himself. I said, Deku, hope for a quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off the roof. I said that, Mr. Aizawa. And then I get here and nobody talks like that anymore. But nobody said I was wrong. And I didn't know how to stop. If I stopped being terrifying, then who was I, you know? They'd eat me alive. It sounds dumb now, but I got... Bakugo swallows the lump in his throat so he can look at a spot on Shota's shoulder instead of his shoes and says, I was scared. Shota thinks this might be where he interjects, but before he can get his mouth open with something to say, Bakugo is still going. And then Izuku was gone, and I knew that was on me. It's my fault he had to do all this, but I thought I'd get better. Maybe I could, I don't know. It sounds stupid now, but I thought I could help. If I was better, and I figure if he can go face down the guy who tried to kill us all a bunch, I could call Mina by her own goddamn name. It all sounds stupid, I don't know. But I was willing to do anything to be better. And then... Bakugo chokes up, so Shota knows where he's going next. And then, yesterday, he wanted... Bakugo is crying now. Fat, dripping tears that don't make a sound on the classroom's linoleum. Shota says, he wanted you to attack him, so he'd have an excuse to run away. Bakugo nods. He scrapes his palm across his eyes. Shota wonders if his tears have the same nitroglycerin that his palms ignite, and activates his quirk for a moment out of instinctive worry. Bakugo says, it just it just hit me. You know, like, that's how he's always seen me, as someone coming to hurt him. And I was. Bakugo sniffles, laughing dryly. I was always hurting him. I thought, well, fuck whatever I thought, it's just... You spend your whole life trying to be a hero, running from the one person who ever tried to save you, and then you realize that's the guy who's always seen you as a villain. But now he's the villain, sorta, and the other villains are doing shit like kissing babies and saving civilians from earthquakes now, so maybe he's just saving villains all along, so maybe I am a villain. Bakugo. Shota interrupts. Bakugo finally looks at him, and the habits locked into those red eyes make them angry, and pinch to hide the tears spilling down cheeks that still haven't even grown into the jawline yet. Shota says, you're not a villain, Bakugo. Bakugo snaps. I know that. Shota stares, and more of those tears overflow, but Bakugo refuses to look away. Refuses to show any more weakness than this. Shota relaxes his posture, sets his arms at just the right angle. He's not sure if Bakugo would ever want a hug from him, but every time Shota has caught Bakugo crying in a stairwell during lunch this past month, he's seen Kirishima with an arm over his shoulders as they walked back into class together 20 minutes later. Bakugo takes the hug, hiding his face in Shota's chest and letting his shoulders shake with sobs. Shota says, the path you're on now, you're doing fine. He no longer remembers whatever was in his original speech. The shoulders hunched into Shota shake harder, and Shota sets a hand on top of Bakugo's head. Bakugo asks, how do I tell him I'm sorry? Those words right there seem like a pretty good start, Shota tells him. Bakugo sniffles, and Shota tries not to carry that he'll have to wash the child gunk off his sweater later. How will I tell him, though? He's gone. Shota makes a face. He's not sure how to answer that without revealing how much he knows, without putting that burden of knowledge on Bakugo, who is just as much a kid as Midoriya and Yaoyorozu and Shinsou and Todoroki and all Shota's other students. He ends up just saying, don't worry. You'll be able to tell him. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 33 of Watch Your Heroes Fall. Chapter 34 will be up next. I hope you all are still enjoying this fic, and as always, thank you so much for listening.